Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. Today, our special guest is Ty Masterson, president of the Kansas Senate, one of our biggest gets for our podcast. We're all super excited to have you here. We looked at a lot of the work that you've done, researched you. Senator Klemp speaks very highly of you and the work that you did to support him. So we're very happy to have you here, and I know how busy you are, so I'm super appreciative.
I'm glad to be here. I mean, we are trying to get around the state.
I can only imagine
we're not
that.
realizing how big Kansas is. Yeah.
What is your day like as you're running for governor?
I just throw out today, right? We were up last night. We came in, but this morning we've got you. I've got an event from 10:30 to noon with the World Cup and some of that.
Oh, wow.
Then I've got fundraising meetings the rest of the afternoon. Then I got a fundraiser tonight in Johnson County.
Wow.
And then we're headed out. We'll be back in Wichita by the end of tonight. And then we'll be in Scott City, Garden City by Monday.
Wow. You do that. You're running for governor. You're president of the Senate. Do you have a regular job that you work as well?
I do. That's one thing that people don't understand. They see Kansas legislature and they think that's a full-time gig, but we're a citizen legislature.
Okay.
And I actually think it's the right thing to do. What you do is you really don't pay somebody enough to live off of it, right? So it doesn't become a career.
Okay.
But you pay enough to cover expenses and be in. But so you have to have a job if you're not self-made, right? Or wealthy or kept by a spouse or retired. And that actually has colored the Kansas legislature a little bit. You get more of the retired or somebody that's wealthier as a spouse. Working class individuals struggle to make it, but it's worked well for me. I've always worked 2 or 3 jobs most of my life. So I did own, a home building business clear up into 2008. And we can get into all that too, but I had to transition myself then. I took a job with Wichita State. So actually my job outside the legislature, which works great, is I manage an operation. We started it actually. It's called Go Create. It's meant to get non-traditional kids into the university.
Wow.
And so we have, because it was who I was growing up. So we have water jets and 3D printers and engravers and table saws and sewing machines. And it's a way to get kids because when kids get creative and want to learn, it gets them engaged in education. So I run that shop. It's called Go Create. What works out great is because it's a institution, I can take full leave, 100% leave during the legislative session. You get no pay, but you take full leave, and then that job's there for me when I come out. And so I'm able to make it work.
Okay. I've heard things about you, and I didn't prep you that you look like an Italian gangster. I've heard that you were a used car salesman. I've heard that you're a very honest, hardworking individual. I've heard the gamut, and I've talked to a lot of people. How would you describe yourself?
None of those terms that I use, right? Because I've never been a gangster. So it's and I've never been a used car salesman. This is the way I see myself, which I don't know how everybody else sees me. Of course, I can't help the way I look, right? That's my mom and dad's fault.
Okay. But do you have some Italian in you?
Everybody thinks I'm Italian. I think we're more Irish. I don't know what kind of mutt I am, right?
I would have sold my soul that you were Italian.
Maybe it's the suits and the attitude. I don't know.
All right.
But it's funny you say that. I had a friend that he saw an article, a friend of his who I didn't know, and saw an article on kind of Trump world getting in with me. There was a picture of me, and he thought I was an AI generated image. And I thought that's interesting, right? And he said, put in, Italian guy. I was like this, but it was, that's the opposite how I see myself as a hardworking. I came up in low middle class is what I never felt poor. Right. But so I worked all my life and never saw, and I'm dyslexic. I'm ADD, right? So you had those challenges coming through school, but I've also learned, actually, my wife and I had reading a book, The Dyslexic Advantage. Okay. And it's just your brain's wired different. It's not that, it's not a dysfunction. It's just you learn different. You perceive things different. You find ways. 35% of all entrepreneurs are dyslexic because it's the way that is. But anyway, so I saw myself as the opposite, right? Of being like used car salesman. I think arrogant, slip talking car salesman.
Let me pause you 1 second though, because did you have trouble in school with these challenges? Were you a good student or?
So I'm gonna say yes and no. I was, what I was is I would cope with, particularly when it came around reading. Since that's one of the most common indicators of, spelling and being able to read fast, right? You can read. My parents put time into it.
Sure.
But I would do workarounds, that would to try to get through things. I mean, what I love now is there's methods of teaching that actually work that, you feel like a cheater then, right? So if I had to absorb a novel for a report, I'd literally go to my older brother who was a voracious reader and have him read it, and then I'd interview him.
Wow.
And write the report because I needed to consume the material. So
that's interesting.
So when I was early high school, I was probably a bit of a discipline challenge because I was frustrated, right? Okay. You feel like you're out of place. Okay. Even though socially I was always connected, right? The gift on the teeter-totter, right?
Sure.
I'm challenged here, but I've seemed to always have an ability or a sense of relationship with people, right? And appreciating people.
Were you an athlete?
I was.
Okay.
I was. But
football, basketball, or
football and track were my main sports.
Quarterback?
No, I was actually, back then you didn't have to be 300 pounds to be, I was a defensive end.
Really?
Primarily.
Okay.
And then I was also on
Sorry, I keep interrupting.
No,
but I'm just curious.
Because I'm a football fan. I love it. Football is one of those sports that, and this is part of my ADD, we can go all over the board. Right? It's one of those sports where I love because it emulates life, because you have a group of people with all very different responsibilities.
Yeah.
But you all have to do your responsibility for the team to function proproperly.
Wow, that's
and
great.
That translates into life,
sure.
Right? Especially in a legislature or a business. So I'm a big fan of football. But my number one thing has always been authenticity. What I want, whether it's hard or not, I want to know what's the actual situation is. What's the truth? And so that's how I see myself, and I get myself in, because I will tell you everything I tell you is true, or I believe it to be true. So if it's not, please help me figure out where I'm wrong, right? So I'm not going to intentionally lie to anybody.
Okay.
Because I want everybody to know where I'm coming from, and I honestly want to know where they're coming from. So I see myself very different than a sick talking car salesman. I believe in what I'm doing. And so,
awesome.
But I didn't see myself as this guy on top. At one point in my life, we were, Marlo, and who's here? My wife's obviously behind this. Been married for 32 years.
Wow.
Got married young. We had 5 kids before she was 30.
Wow.
We ended with 6, and we made a conscious decision that we wanted her to be home with the kids. Okay. So I had to live on a single income. That meant dual jobs. But at one point in my life early on, I'm a trash man in a trailer park. That's what it took to put food on the table. And so I did not see myself the way other people see me now. Of course, I didn't even own a suit.
Sure.
I didn't own a suit until the day I got elected.
Wow.
Because it wasn't the way I lived.
So you just came from the ground up.
Yeah.
You're the ideal self-made man. My father always said, if you've got to dig ditches in wherever to provide for your family, that's what you've got to do. And you better be the best ditch digger there is.
That's right. My dad did instill in me, my parents, my grandparents, don't ever ask anybody else to do something you're not willing to do yourself.
Wow.
Because that's seeing them as less. Mm-hmm. And so I've been the ditch digger and the trash truck driver, and I have a vivid memory on the back of the truck. One time, young man here going to trailer park, and I was going to hopping down out of the truck, throwing stuff in the back. I hit the Packer, and it was, I don't know what it was, like a bag of old grass or something, but just it explodes and boom, hits me. And I was just like, and I was like, Lord, is this what you have for me? Is this what,
oh my
gosh, this what my life's supposed to be? But I tell you what, when I say he wasn't out loud, but I felt God say to me, they said, yeah, you be the best trash truck driver you can be, right? It's like, and do the best you can where he has you. And that has continued to serve me well.
That's awesome. I'm just amazed. That's a great story. And I don't think people really have gotten to know who you are. Being self-made, I think, speaks volumes about you and your character.
When our culture builds caricatures around people in politics, right? The politicians, right? You see me up there on the floor in a suit, right? Speaking about all these issues. And I think a lot of people just assume you've kind of gone the traditional route of, I was in political science in college, and then I interned on the Hill.
Did you go to college?
I attended K-State for 2 years and then ran out of money. Like I said, we didn't come for money, didn't have money. And I just ran out of money. And I didn't do too bad. at college. I just didn't have any more money to continue on. I was starting to get into student loans and debt. And then I realized I'm not going to have the income to cover that. So I went back to Wichita, started working, had enough hours. You could add an associate's degree, but they didn't offer them. Right. So I don't have a completed degree. And got married and just been hustling, working ever since.
Put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
I went to KU for 5 years. I didn't graduate. I got a degree in drinking, but not something that I'm proud of. But my wife, we had a child together. We weren't together. And I dropped out of college so that I could go to work full time. I was working the Taco John's on 6th Street as the manager, working 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. some days to provide for this child that I just had. Eventually, I did get my degree during COVID. We were living in Jersey at the time, and I got it online, a degree in information technology, but it took a long time. Also, I think I was much older and appreciated school at the second time through.
I think, there were moments in time where I thought about going back and just completing because it wasn't that long of a path. But at that point in my life, it didn't show any benefit. It was just going to be more, but at least I didn't perceive it to be. Not until you get into politics where people expect you to have it. I'm a non-traditional politician. My resume does not look like most politicians.
Wow. What sparked you to get into politics then?
So it's a good question. I mean, I was always taught to, another lesson, my parents were great at these lessons and sinking them into, don't complain about anything unless you're willing to do something about it.
Wow.
And so that was the understanding. They told me to be civically responsible, pay attention. What's going on in politics matter. I would have been least likely to be where I'm at back then. But so from the time I turned 18, I voted, right? I voted in all the elections, and I had become a home builder. In the late 90s through 2008, which is another big thing to go through there. So what got me into politics, I was building houses in the little community I live in, Andover, and the impact fees to build houses were so high, right? Parks and streets. It's like, I think it was $7,000 just to pull the permit to build the house, right? And that all adds to the cost, which even leads to today, talking about affordability, but this was clear back then. So I naively just...
And those are sunken costs. You're not making those back.
No, those are pass-throughs, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a tax
right
on you. So I printed black and white signs, knocked on doors, ran for the city council.
And
then I hit a buzzsaw there because I was a bit of a good old boys club there. And I come in and...
Not part of the group.
Not part of the group. And the mayor was like, what's on your agenda? And I said, I'd like to look at these impact fees as the number one. He said, we probably should. We haven't raised them in a while.
Oh my gosh.
We're not going to get along. So, and we didn't. We had I joke with people, we had a passive aggressive relationship until we decided to just drop the passive and call it what it was.
Oh, wow.
But it was, I served there as a non-starter. I didn't accomplish anything, but then that was kind of an entry into politics from the peripheral. Like the chairman of the county party knew my parents. Had gone to church with them and had been in Sunday school with them. And she loved my dad and mom and saw I had entered politics. Well, my state representative resigned. To take a job with Jerry Moran back then. And they came to recruit me for that spot. And so I hadn't really even conceived of it until then. I told her no, but I said, damn, that's in Topeka, right? That's 2 hours away from me. And we have small kids. And she goes, well, will you at least pray about it? I said, well, you can't say, no, I won't pray about it.
That's right.
So I did. And
that's
talked to my wife. And that's how, they said it would be only 90 days. It ended up being 20 years. But that was the entry into politics. I won a hotly contested precinct election to replace him. Won my first election into the House in 2006. And then ran for the Senate in 2008.
Oh, so you only served one term in the House or two?
Term and a half, because I precinct elected to fill the back half of the one term, and then ran for the next full term.
Gotcha.
And then ran for the Senate. So
how long have you been president of the Senate?
So that was after the 2020 election. And talk about humbling. I was told, I was too conservative to ever probably be in leadership. And I was the first president to come in by acclamation.
Really?
Yeah. And and that's, I know that's not, doesn't mean everybody, it was unanimous. Everybody wanted to see me be president, but we had enough support. They knew they couldn't beat me. And so, which I'd appreciated the gentleman that was kind of the likely to be the main opponent, that we became friends through that, working with people that as you have these battles. And then of course I made him a chairman of a committee, and we functioned pretty well together for that next one. And then I just re-won that in 2024. also coming in by acclamation.
What made you decide to run for governor?
Good question. And there's layers to it.
Okay.
Some of it's what I've basically come to realize, because I've been fighting the fight for 20 years, right, between the House and Senate. And the sword you wield at the legislative level just isn't powerful enough to slay the dragon of government overreach that I think needs to be dealt with.
Sure.
Right. So that takes, and that's how my slogan kind of come to be, Take Back Kansas, because it's the executive branch, well, honestly, the judicial branch too, or have as much, if not more effect. And I would say more effect, because no matter what law we pass, it's implemented and or enforced or not by the executive branch.
Sure.
And then those laws can be interpreted or sometimes invented, right, by the judicial branch. And so that's what's given me the drive. And then the underlying, from a timing perspective, is Kansas has a statehood-long tradition that once you hit the top spot in the legislature, which is the president of the Senate, that you will not hold that power for more than 2 terms, and you'll voluntarily let the power turn over. Again, that's been the length of our statehood.
Okay.
And it's because we don't have term limits. We don't have a statute or a rule or anything, but we have that tradition, and I believe in it. So I think power should turn. You look at states. I've been involved I was a national chairman of a group called the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is it's kind of the largest group of state legislatures that actually engages in lawmaking, trying to get policies moved. And so I've learned a lot about a bunch of different states. And I'm telling you, those states that have 30-year speakers, right, or 30-year presidents of the Senate, the guys that hold the power, in my observation, power becomes a person, not a position, right? I mean, that person has total control, because the more powerful you get, the easier it is to maintain it, right? And so I think it's not just good, but critical that power shift and turn over. And so I'm in my second term as the Senate president. And so I believe it's time to let the power turn over. So we'll continue to do that. So that's a little bit of the timing. But I'm just looking at the candidates, this season, Kansas goes Republican, Democrat, and governor for nearly 70 years, I want to say. And so the trends are in our direction. And I'm just looking at this. I hate primaries to a large degree, because a lot of those in the race are your friends, right? People that, you're generally on the same page, and you're trying to decide which one of them will lead best, right? And I think just looking at the field, I believe I can lead best. I believe that's one thing that sets me apart. I have a record of effectiveness.
Sure.
That they don't. Matter of fact, I use it. I think I even used it at the event I met you at, where the Soros group, the Kansas Reflector, they're obviously left and don't like me. And so they didn't mean it as a compliment, but they described me as brutally effective.
Oh, wow.
Inside. And they say brutally. I mean, they don't mean that as a fake, because they're not fans that we overrode vetoes and protected our girls' sports, or, the trans surgeries for young children and those types of things. They're not fans of those types of actions. So they call me brutally effective, because we're able to get it done.
What is the biggest challenge with working across the party lines?
So I've grown through that, I'd say, because you come in to a legislature pretty idealistic, right? You think that, everything makes sense till you're in the middle of the battle. Right.
Sure.
Right. So, I'm just going to come in, we'll explain it to everybody, they'll get it, and we'll all make this decision. You find out there are a lot of people that think a lot different than you. So I think the original challenge is just giving audience to the other side, and understanding that that's a person too that has value. Actually, where I think my Christian faith has enabled me to really work bipartisan, because that's when you come from that position. It's like separating sin from a sinner. Does that make sense to you? Sure. Right? That I can love you as a person and disagree with the position you're taking politically. Right? And so I honestly have authentic, positive relationships with my minority leader, Dinah Sykes.
Okay.
I have an authentically positive relationship with the governor, right, who is an opposite to me. We don't agree on a lot, and we vehemently disagree on some pretty emotional issues, but yet we work together on that which we can. So it's leaving that respect for somebody that just thinks different than you, and you need that in a in a government environment, particularly in the legislature. You need it in all the branches, but particularly in a legislature, you have to be able to work with people, because that's what makes it different than the whole I'm a CEO and I manage the thing, because in that you get to fire people and manage who is in your world of operation. Sure. That does not happen in government, right? You have, whether you're in the legislature or a governor dealing with the legislature, those are individuals that were sent there by the state. You can't fire them, and you have to learn how to work with those people. And some of them are very difficult personalities.
Sure.
And so that's the key to being able to work bipartisanship is giving an audience and understanding. And honestly, there's probably 80% of what we do there is unanimous, right? It's just kind of the logistical running of things. And most bills come out, and then we argue over 20%, and we probably fight over 5 or 6%.
Because it's not perceived that way from my level.
No, it was not.
It looks like it's a knockdown, drag out between the aisles on a regular basis. You guys hate each other. It seems like we've gotten to a point in politics where people just want to talk to people who believe what they believe.
Well, and society makes that too easy, right? There's no unbiased source of news anymore, right? Everything's editorialized to some degree. You have your own sounding board to go to, right, Joe? Whether that's MSNBC or CNN or Fox, or you pick your thing. But I mean, you and then now with the internet and social media and all that, you can just pull the walls in on yourself to just have an echo chamber, and it blows my mind. It's like we live I know people. It's like we live in alternate realities. It's like going,
definitely,
of how you see this nation, how you see politics. And so that's hard. So I would say, and I think that is the world of DC, because they operate on sound bites and media clips and all that. In Kansas, we're in the same room, and you have to deal with people and be respectful. Now there are people in the chamber that hate each other, right? Wouldn't give each other the time of day. But I would say that's more rare than not.
Okay.
In the legislature, because you need to, and the longer I've been in, you can't burn a bridge, because you're going to have to cross that again at some point, right? And work together. And so it's showing respect, and where you can work together, there's some areas where, I mean, it's just not a deeply moral set of facts, or we just disagree on something that's more like a contract, if you will, where you're just negotiating terms, and negotiate the terms, right? Where you give where you can, and to get to the middle ground. And we've had areas like that where we've been successful, and to some degree, surprisingly successful, I think, to others. We had we had a policy on victims of sexual abuse, right? And the statute of limitations on that, criminally and civilly, and it was just perceived to be going to be this big battle, right? But I got with Dinah, and we worked through the caucus, and because I thought we talked to the victims, we look at because we're in a very litigious society, so the balance is like on that issue, the balance is someone's been accused but not convicted. Can I then sue them civilly, and try to fleece them or not? And so what we did in compromise, we took the statute of limitation completely off on the criminal side, right? If somebody is guilty of that, I don't care how long it is, you should pay a price, right? And then what we did to compromise is opened up. If somebody gets, even 30 years later, gets convicted criminally, because that's a high standard conviction, then the civil door opens up as well. Mm-hmm. And so, and that bill came out unanimous.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it's an emotional, tense bill. So it was everybody was shocked we were able to pull it off that way. And we've done some stuff on childcare that way. We've done, economic development often is an area that the two sides work together well. Yeah.
I've done my research, and as I researched you for the podcast, you don't come out negative on very much. I mean, it always seems to be very positive. It always seems to be very, very directed at what you say. And so I appreciate that, because I think it's very easy to go negative, especially when you're trying to make a point or you disagree with somebody.
You also won't catch me calling people names. It's not it's not a healthy place to be, but people love it. That's what sells things, right?
Newspapers. If it leads, it bleeds.
Yes, 100%, right? So internal story. When I first first became president, it was the same year Diana became minority leader.
Okay.
So fresh start. That's what I thought. I went there and I said, I'd like to have a relationship where I know we're going to battle over some issues, but I'll commit to I'll never attack you as an individual. I'm asking that of the same.
You reciprocate that.
And we had that was the first year we had our big discussion on the men and women's sports. And it was very emotional. And she and I were kind of the leads on it. And it was, it got tense. And I don't even know that she wrote it, but her comms person at the time, their release, called me some type of self-righteous bigot or something.
Wow.
I mean, it was an intense calling. And I saw that. And I went to her and I said, this is what I'm talking about. And I said, now I got people pushing me, oh, you need to call her an anti-science, ignorant, I mean, and I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to even respond to this. I said, but this is what I was talking about. And to her credit, she has not personally attacked me ever since. I mean, with that. And so it was a situation, that's where you can take something that's bad and turn it into something good. It also comes from my upbringing. My father was the eternal optimist. Even though we didn't have a lot of money, he was always positive. I have a memory of a Christmas time where I think it was one of the sisters-in-law said something. We go, let's go around, do highs and lows, high for the year, low for the year.
Okay.
When it starts going, I got to my dad, and my dad gave a praise, a good thing. And then he goes, I just don't do low. Why would I waste my mental energy going and dwelling on something negative? And it struck me. And that's a biblical reference too. I mean, in Philippians, he tells you, think about what is true and right and noble and praiseworthy and excellent. Think about those things, because every day of everybody's life, there's going to be negative things that happen and there's going to be positive things that happen. And those people that only focus on the negative, you're going to become a bitter, angry person, right? But if you
become what we think.
Yes, you do. And so that's why you see me that way, because in politics in particular, there's always something negative to attack.
Sure.
Right? There always will be. That will never end.
It's amazing. And I can see your passion, and I really appreciate that, because I think you're right. As an entrepreneur and a business person, I run into people with problems all the time. And then you run into those entrepreneurs that are like, oh, the world is against me, and this negative thing after negative thing. But you're in a position to do things that you probably wouldn't be in. So while it's easy to focus on the negative, the more you focus on the positive, the more you'll succeed.
Well, it's in your own attitude, right? Finding joy in a day, because you're going to get everybody on the planet is going to experience something negative every day. Might be something small, might be something huge, but you can't let that steal your joy.
Yeah. My father would always say, don't make mountains out of molehills.
Yeah.
Take it for what it is and move on. And he would always challenge my beliefs. He would always take the con side to it and make me articulate why I supported something. And so I've taken that on. I think that's why I found myself being such a moderate, because I try to identify and understand where the other person's coming from. Whether I agree with them or not, I'm always challenging to see whether my belief holds up. Because if it holds up and we can talk about it, then I have something of value. If I have to yell at you and call you names because we disagree, then obviously I'm defending something that has no value.
But most people are very uncomfortable with that.
Sure.
Right. And so you've taught to take some of this discomfort to sharpen yourself. And this debate we're having now about redistricting.
Sure.
Right. And I believe we should be challenged like that. I think every district should have some level of competition to it.
Yeah.
So you're out and you can have the debate and articulate it and refine it. But what happens generally in politics, you tend to draw deeper red districts and deeper blue districts, so they're easier to win, right, from the people that are there. But that's not healthy for the debate.
No.
You get people that they won't stand strong because they've never had to challenge themselves in the debate. And so it's I'm in favor of districts that are in the sense, now I always want to win.
Sure. Everybody wants to win.
But it's healthy to have the challenge. And so that's something that I've grown in my time, because it's easy to go sit in your echo chamber and be told exactly what you want to hear. It's hard to step out and actually have that confrontational conversation. And it's becoming the skill is being a little lost. I'd like to see more where you can have a challenging, difficult conversation with somebody and still walk away respecting each other and not, this, we've got, now people are shooting people for their ideas. The Charlie Kirk thing for the way you haven't really seen that since Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Right. Killed for what they believed, not for, because they had no power position.
Sure.
Right. They didn't hold elected office or weren't even trying to hold elected office. And people are killing them because they think they don't like their ideas. And that's a tragic place to be.
But that's a result of our society today because
Divided up.
We divide ourselves. How do you handle when you talk to a constituent and we're trailing away from this list of questions because this is really fascinating, but how do you handle a constituent that didn't vote for you, doesn't particularly agree with a lot of your views, but challenges you on things?
Yeah. So I'm comfortable pushing back in the sense that, and I say pushing back in the sense of this is the way I see it. This is what I believe. These are the facts. I find in many of those situations, certainly a majority, if not all of them, they generally come out of the echo chamber and only have their set of facts, right? Or read the article, that didn't exactly present it in a way, or watch the news story. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched the news or read an article and go, I was in the room, and that doesn't at all represent what happened, right? And so I joked. I said, well, about some of these people, if that's all I knew about me, I wouldn't like me either.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Right? Because it's the confined information. So I'll often ask people, are you open to additional facts or circumstances around that to have a conversation, or this is just what it is? And I've had people go, I know everything. This is the fact, and you're a piece of garbage, right? Type of thing. And so those I don't waste my time after that. But if it's somebody that really wants to have a conversation about it, I'm glad to have it.
That's powerful. Okay. We're been at a time crunch, so I'm trying to get to the things that I really wanted to challenge you on. And I'm going to get to property tax.
Okay.
We've got a conservative majority. You guys were tasked with solving the problem, and yet we've come away with no resolution and still hurting Kansans. Why is that? How can we solve that? How do you see the path forward?
Yeah, that's the hardest part about a legislature, right? We might have this great idea, but if you don't have a majority and a signature, it doesn't happen. Or in this case, what makes property tax so complex is that it's all local spending, right? It's your school, your city, your county, your community college. We have a ton of property tax districts. So what makes it complicated is we're trying to figure something out at the state, who's not the consumer of the collection, and how to fix it. But we have the understanding a real problem, right? We are taxing people out of their houses.
We are.
And then even from a business, when you're a business owner, small business, or commercial taxes, that translates down, right? Because you have to, whatever your product or service is, you have to be able to have pricing to afford to pay your property taxes.
And I'm going to interrupt you here because I'm going to complain now because I collect sales tax for the state. I'm not compensated for it. I get penalized when I mess up. That's a travesty, but go ahead. I'll go on.
There's lots of layers there, right? Seriously. Think about that. So ultimately, there are some things we can do. I call it, but they whittle around the edges of, potentially electing appraisers, right? Because just because in states that elect appraisers, they generally have lower property taxes than those that don't.
But you can only be within 10% of the fair market value anyways.
That takes a constitutional amendment. That is where we got to ultimately get to. So when I say whittle around the edges, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
We need to put an amendment on the ballot. And the Senate's passed it 3-4 times in the last, 3 times last year alone. And then once the year before that basically puts a limiter on it, right? Not that it can't grow, but there's a limit because like in my own neighborhood, and this is an example because of those comparable situations. And of course, some of that's subjective, but within the bandwidth of the margin, right? We had a tornado come through, cleaned off these lots that had been established for years. So the lots that we paid $10,000 for 25 years ago, selling for $65,000 to $90,000. Now, got to be in 10%. And then they're building big houses. So we have big lots, old houses. Now you got a big lot, brand new house. Size comparisons are the same. So we've seen jumps in property tax, 18, 20, 22, 25% annually, right? So I've got some neighbors that are paying double in property tax what they paid for their mortgage, interest, insurance taxes combined, 20 years ago. And so that's basically taxing somebody on unrealized gain.
Yep.
And you get that in the market, right? So where, I'm not paying on that till I made the profit on it. So this guy living in his house, and he can't just sell his house and take it because he's got to go buy another one at the new market. So that will take a constitutional amendment, but we have to have a limiter to where it can't just jack somebody up like that, right? You need to have people have heads up. Like in my neighborhood, the new guy that came in and bought the little mini mansion on the big lot and paid $900,000 for it. Well, he had the resource. He knew what the price was, knew what the mill levy was, knew what the lot was. I mean, somebody has that capacity. The guy that's lived there for 35 years, he didn't have that information.
Well, he's probably 70 years old on a fixed income.
Yeah,
he's renting his house now because all he's probably is paying property tax.
He recently passed away, the neighbor that I'm thinking of. He has two 60-something children living in there to afford the property tax.
Wow.
So it's ultimately going to take a constitutional amendment. That takes a supermajority of the legislature. The governor's not even.
But this seems like common sense.
Well, it should be, and there's solid majorities on both sides for it.
Sure.
To get to super majorities, it gets difficult because that goes to basically a fundamental ideological difference between the parties.
Okay.
Where the Republicans generally believe the solution is less government, less spending, less interference. But the Democrat side believes that government is the solution. You need more programs, more subsidy, more welfare programs. And that requires those taxes remain fairly high, right? I mean, because those are two fundamental positions in government. So that's what gets juxtaposed, right, in that process. They're thinking, well, then we can't do that. We can't lower that tax because unless we replace it with another tax, because we've got to have that amount of money. They don't conceive of, we just need to have less services or less, and there's constituencies to both of those, right? That's the weight. It's never as easy as it looks like from the outside. And we got within just a handful of votes of getting it on there. And that is probably my number one priority in this 2026 session coming up, is to get something on the ballot for the people to vote on that would put a limiter on the increases in property tax. I would even like to see it kind of reset the dial because, during COVID, we had this massive growth, right, in appraisal values. I'd like to see us kind of reset the dial, right, even if it's just back to like 22 or something, because then everybody gets some level of immediate relief, and then the limiter comes in to where it's going to start going, but it's not. It can't jump like it jumped.
Wow, that's awesome. It just seems like it's easy, but it takes a lot of negotiation. How often do you run into issues where somebody on the other side just disagrees with you, not because it's a bad idea, but because you're a Republican?
Oh, well.
How much does that actually happen?
I would say it's a certain segment of population that it happens with. That they just believe I'm right, you're wrong. I'll never support a Republican. I've had people actually do that, knocking on a door. You Republican or Democrat? I'm a Republican. Shut the door.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I've had him say the other thing, if you're a Democrat, get off my porch. Right? Well, I'm not. I'm a Republican. So
being a moderate, I don't think I had anybody slam the door in my face.
Were you running in a nonpartisan race?
When I ran for county commissioner, it was partisan.
It was partisan. Okay.
Yeah, I ran as United Kansas third party.
You don't see that as much in the more local races as you do, because what we get colored with national politics, which is generally what all the media sees, right? So the state level, no matter what we're dealing with the state, we're generally colored by all the national politics.
Well, I would say that anybody who labeled themselves a Democrat in the county probably had the door slammed in their face. Anybody in the city, you got a little bit of off and on. But I went to, even this election, that last election, I went to people who had my opponent's signs in the yards just because I wanted to talk. I wanted to challenge them. And a few people were like, well, what's so-and-so's platform? Well, I'd like you to look that up, but I can tell you what mine is. But I never went out and trashed anybody. The city commission election was a much better election. We all respected each other. There was 3 very conservatives. There was one moderate conservative. I was the independent in that race, and then we had one more liberal.
I can tell you why that happens, though, just being in that world, right? And it goes back to those party platforms, right? there are, and I think there's truth to it. If you're someone that believes biological males, men should compete in my girls' sports, you believe a baby should be aborted until it breathes air. There are people that go, if you have those tenets, I don't know what else you would believe in, even if it's not at that socially, but whether it's taxes or spending or this, I don't think you're the kind of person I want to support. So that's how it comes from the core of the platform, right? And you get the same thing on the other side. If you won't believe there are those only, you don't think a woman's right to choose is number one, right? Or if you think then I'm not voting for you. That kind of immediate rejection comes from the core of the platform.
I would challenge you on a couple of those,
sure,
but we're running out of time.
Right.
So what I want to do is get to our next segment. And I would definitely like to have you back because we definitely have a lot more to talk about. I didn't cover half the questions I wanted. But before we get into the next segment, I'm wearing my red. It's Red Friday. The Chiefs have to win the game this Sunday.
They have to.
Are you going to be watching it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I have an opportunity to be there, but I've traveled so much lately. I got to spend Sunday is football day. We're my boys. We have the sick 2 boys.
Okay.
We love football. Sunday's a football day. We go to church. You come back, you have lunch, and you watch football.
Okay. All right. Normally I wear a nonprofit shirt to support, but today I felt like the Chiefs need some good vibes after this the past loss on Thanksgiving. But we're going to switch to some questions about you so we can get to learn about the details of Ty Masterson, Senate President. So these are rapid fire questions.
All right.
What is your go-to in the morning, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay.
And it's black.
It's black.
It's black.
No Starbucks.
No Starbucks.
No
drinks. Nothing. I'm not
Okay.
Yep.
Early riser or night owl?
Night owl. But which I've been, because my wife's an early morning person.
Oh, okay.
So we've worked through that. It's been a good, but I'd rather drive late at night than get up early.
I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah, just my dad. My dad never needed an alarm clock.
Yeah.
Up at 5 o'clock. He said, well, sometimes it varied, 4:58, 4:59.
I'm up at 3:30 every day.
Is that right?
I hit the gym before I go to work because I get an hour or so of quiet time, and I'm not dad, I'm not husband, I'm just zoned out. And
I do need my first few minutes of quiet time. And so I commit to that. So I'll take my first 5 minutes, first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and boom, get my mind right. It's I read the Bible every morning just to reset and focus on the positive. Right?
Yep.
Boom, go for the day. But man, at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's the middle of the night, man.
All right. What's one book you think every Kansan should read?
Well, I'm going to tell you the Bible's book.
Okay.
But outside of that, there's some neat, this Dyslexic Advantage book that I do a lot of audiobooks because of that. It's been very interesting to see just learning how somebody else's brain may perceive things. So that's something I would recommend.
Okay. Favorite place in Kansas to clear your head?
Home.
All right. This one's a tough one. Barbecue or steakhouse?
Ooh. I grew up eating 1 cow for every chicken. So I like the red meat. I'm going to probably go barbecue.
All right. Favorite barbecue place then?
Oh, man. So many good ones.
I know you don't want to take a stand on this because you're running for governor,
and I'm trying to think up here in this area. We were at Hayward's Pit Barbecue.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great.
Okay. All right. Good. One thing you always have with you when you travel?
Well, I hate to be stupid and say it's my phone, right? So
No, that's a good answer.
But
I would say phone charger.
The problem is I don't always have that with me. That makes things difficult.
What show are you binge watching right now if you're watching a show?
This is going to sound kind of funny because it's the old Perry Masons. Black and white. Just sometimes I just want to get out of the modern culture. What I love about that was so fun. This is set in California. Everybody smoked and everybody had a pistol.
Yep.
It's like they'll talk to the little old lady. Have you fired your revolver? She goes, no, but I have it with me.
Now, I will say my mother, who's more seasoned, that's her favorite show too.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out there.
We like some of the old stuff.
A habit you're trying to get better at.
Habit I'm trying to get better at. I'd probably say I read the Bible every morning and have for many years, but I need to get better at, consciously turning that into action every day.
That's challenging.
It is challenging because people are challenged.
Yes, they
including
are.
myself.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, I've received so much. I don't know. I think probably the best advice I've received, it goes back to my parents. It's like, love first, right? And just don't assume the worst, love first. It's respect other people.
What do you think is the most underrated town in Kansas?
Ooh, underrated town? So I feel like I'm constrained there because I haven't been to every town yet.
Okay.
And I'm working on it, right?
All right.
Underrated town that I've been to or live in is I think it's Wichita.
Okay.
It has been, because it's big enough, it's got all the amenities, but people don't, it's still kind of the stepchild of the Kansas City suburbs or, the Northeast Kansas. But, I was born and raised in the area, and I still believe it's underrated. It's a great place to raise a family. I mean, that's Kansas in general.
Sure.
We don't have oceans or mountains but we are a great place to raise a family. And that's why we're fighting so hard here to make sure we can maintain that, because I am invested in this state, right? My children, all 6 of my children have chosen to make their families, and we have 7 grandchildren already. They're raising their kids here. And that is a difference even amongst the candidates. I'd be interested to know how many of the other candidates whose children are wanting and choosing to live in Kansas, because that'll show you how much they've invested in Kansas. But that's very important to me, that Kansas remain affordable and a place that you can attain the American dream, because we're losing that. I don't think my kids have the same shot at the American dream that I did.
Wow. What's one of your favorite Kansas traditions?
So it's good. And I'd say a Kansas tradition. I think for us, Kansas traditionally, it is the focus on family. So we have what I would call my Kansas family tradition. I just mentioned it. It's every Sunday. Every Sunday, all my kids and my grandkids come over to the house. And even when it's not football season, right? And we spend time together, because in the end, that's the biggest investment I'll ever make in my life, is in those kids.
Wow. All right. This last one's a hard one. Do you think Kansas will see a new baseball or football team in the near future?
So I probably know more than most.
And if you can't answer, I'll understand.
No. Here's what I'll say. If you're a betting person, bet on Kansas.
Wow, that's powerful. That's all I've got for today.
Right.
I'm trying to keep you on schedule. I know it's a tough one. Thank you so much for being here. I know you wanted to announce your platform. You want to just do that really quick?
Yeah, but for those, it's Ty Masterson. It's mastersonforgovernor.com. And there's lots of we were on Instagram and X and True Social. So there's links to all that on the website. If you want to know more about me, and just tap in and sign up for newsletters or whatever. We're glad to get it to you.
Thank you so much,
Joe.
for being
Thank
here.
you for having me.
I appreciate you. Good luck. We talk to a lot of people, but we'll have this out there. And if you get time and you're back in the area and you want to be back on, we don't normally record on Fridays, but we made a special because we really wanted to have you here. So we'd be willing to do that again.
We'll do it.
All right. Thanks. That's our episode for this week. Look forward to you guys next week. And if you like what we do here, make sure you like and subscribe on our page. Thanks a lot.